Good morning. I was listening to an interview recently with a man named Adam Serwer, who's written a book called Cruelty is the Point. And it's, I haven't read the book, but from the interview, it's a rather sad thing because his theory is that American politics, which is also driving American culture, has become a place where cruelty is the point. And we try to crush those who are our opponents with cruelty, and we even maybe enjoy watching people be crushed by cruelty, and it happens on both sides, he says, and he kind of describes it to being kind of like in junior high when there was the in crowd, and the in crowd defined itself somewhat against the others, whoever the others were, and if you weren't in the in crowd, you either needed to do what you needed to do to get into the in crowd, which was probably going to be cruel, or you just kept your mouth shut so that you didn't become a target of the in crowd, and then the rest were kind of on the outside, or other groups might rise up and try to counter it. But few people would actually try to counter the in group because they knew to actually come up against the in group to counter it would be to lead to trouble. And in thinking about that and thinking about American culture, and particularly from a perspective of Christianity and the church, I realized that Jesus is one of those people that counters cruelty. Again and again and again, when others are trying to define who's in and who's out, Jesus counters it. And so Jesus has parties with tax collectors and prostitutes and sinners. Jesus goes to the home of Roman centurions, of the enemy of Israel. Jesus hangs out with Samaritans. Jesus even goes to the home of Pharisees and scribes. He will be with anybody. He will hang out with anybody. He will commune with anybody because he recognizes that he isn't interested in defining himself against somebody else. And on his very last night on earth before he was crucified, he makes a rather poignant plea to his disciples. I want you to be one. Be one with one another as I and the Father are one. I want you to love one another as I have loved you. And I want you to know that the world is going to know that you are mine by the way that you love one another. And therein is a powerful, powerful message for us in a culture that is increasingly defining itself by cruelty. How can we be like Jesus and stand up against the cruelty, and even more importantly, I think, open our arms up to those who are being treated with cruelty? I think the first step for us is to recognize that we cannot let ourselves be defined by our political party or by some stand that we might take or some deep-held belief that we may have, because that's going to pit us on one side or the other. And that's not to say that those things aren't important, because they are important. And sometimes there is absolute truth and right and absolute what is wrong and is untrue. And we don't need to say that everything is equal. But if my absolute definition of who I am is I am a disciple of Jesus Christ, and if you are a disciple of Jesus Christ, that makes you my brother or my sister, and that is more important than anything else, then we can begin to move forward. Rather than being cruel to one another, to try to understand one another, to try to shape one another, as one of the Proverbs says, as iron sharpens iron, so one good friend sharpens another. And so we sharpen each other by coming together as brothers and sisters in Christ, and by demonstrating to the world, you will know who we are by the love that we have for each other, and then you are going to want to be a part of us. And we aren't the in group. We are the group that always has our arms open for all who will. And we can do these things, of course, and only because God is with us. Amen.